Are you a business owner who's fed up with feeling like the world thinks you have to be a boss babe CEO, whatever the hell that is, or hustle 24/7 in order to be taken seriously? If so, welcome to Life in Business, the podcast for women just like you who want to find a slow and steady way to grow your business that's built around genuine work-life balance, not a multi-million-pound empire. I'm your podcast host, Libby Langley, business coach and mentor, solopreneur, sole trader, cat mama, and die-hard advocate of doing less to achieve more. In Life in Business, I'm going to share with you how to make small but effective tweaks, how to be confident in your business decisions, how to say no to things you think you should be doing, and how to make a healthy and guilt-free profit doing exactly what you love the most without working 14 hours a day. Get ready to make your dreams come true. Here's this week's episode. Hello, welcome to Life in Business. I'm Libby Langley and I'm your host. This is my podcast. Welcome to my world. I'm so delighted that you're here. By being here, you're giving yourself the time and space to just feel a little bit different, a little bit calmer, treat yourself in a slightly gentler way and make some headway in your business. And that might be a mental shift for you, or it might be some practical tips on how you can do things differently. Whatever your reason and whatever you're going to get out of today, I am delighted that you're here. So thank you. Today I want to talk to you about the two things that really matter in business. Yep, there's only two. So this is an easy and quick list for us to get through today. Now, I'm going to go into as much detail as I can about them for you so you can get as much support as you need. But there really are only two things that matter in business. And the thing is that business is really complicated. You know, having a business is complicated. Running a business is complicated. It's tiring. It's exhausting. But actually, if you remember the two things that matter, it's going to be easier for you and it's going to take the pressure off for you. Okay. So before I tell you what these two things are, and before I talk about these in more detail, I kind of want to talk about you. I want to get you ready for being more receptive to different ways of thinking. So I want to talk about you and I want you to get kind of inside your own head for a few minutes. And just to remember why it is that you're in business in the first place, why it is that you're in business, why you started your business. What is it that you want from your business? What you want your business to provide for you and your life? How you want your business to look? How you want your business to serve you? How you want your business to be part of your day to day? Okay? So all these things are so important to kind of always remember, just because it's your business, right? It's your thing that you control, that you can do what the flippin' heck you like with. It doesn't control you. It's not the boss of you. It doesn't, it's not a living, breathing entity in its own right. It's something that you are 100% in control of and 100% in charge of. So all the everythings about your business are entirely controllable and entirely changeable to fit with what it is that you want. So never, ever, ever lose sight of that, because that really is just so important. And how's it going so far? How is it looking for you? How do you feel about where you are on your journey and where you hoped you'd be by now? You might be miles ahead of where you thought you might be by now. But my guess is that, it's perhaps a bit trickier than you thought. There's perhaps more downtimes than you thought. There's perhaps a million more elements in business that you thought. Perhaps you were kind of a bit naive about running a business and now you're doing it. And the more you kind of see and hear and the more people that you listen to on social media, the more you're thinking, oh Christ, I don't know what I'm doing. I should be here by now. I should be here. I should be there. I should be doing this. And just the overwhelm is real, right? I imagine that there are quite a few days like that you have. And that's another reason that I'm so pleased that you're here and that you're listening to this, because my vision and my mission for this podcast is to kind of stop all that, to be the voice of reason, to be your sanity checker to be your friend in your ear, to be a support to you, to tell you that there is an easier, kinder, gentler, simpler, easier, I've said easier twice, super easy then, because it's twice, way of doing business. Okay. So all hope is not lost. Absolutely. Now, let me tell you what these two important things in business are, the only two things that really matter. And they are happiness and profit. Okay? One is intangible and one is very tangible. So happiness sounds really flaky, right? It's not the kind of thing that Alan Sugar would be talking about on The Apprentice, is it? But are you happy? You're fired, I think, would be the response to that. But you're in your own business, okay? You don't work for some cutthroat business owner. You work for yourself. You have your own business. You are queen of your own destiny. And so happiness, well, flipping heck, it's everything, isn't it? Happiness and how you feel inside is what is the point of life. Totally. Because if you're not happy, what you're doing is utter waste of time, and you might as well go and get a job and get all the perks that come with having a job. So how do you measure happiness? It's not what I'm not intending to try and say you must be skipping through the daisies at every point in your business day or your week, because that's not realistic, right? There are shit times. There are going to be shit times. There are going to be disappointing times. And future episodes will deal with disappointment in business and how to maintain a positive outlook when your business is crumbled. Okay, these are future episodes you need to look out for. But overall, you're kind of 80% happiness. If you think of an 80-20 rule, then if you're 80% happy with your business, that's fine. We can improve on the 20%, right? But if the feeling is when someone talks to you about your business or you start talking about your business and your face lights up and you say, yeah, do you know what? I really love it. That is what matters. And if you don't have that, then we need to talk more, okay? It might be worth you booking in to have a free taster session with me. You can do that. If you go to libbylangley.com, you can find all the information. But if you're not happy at all, then there are bigger questions to be asked, okay? So my one-to-one coaching service supports people to move forward in their business, possibly from a state of unhappiness, certainly from a state of overwhelm and confusion, and get them to utopia, right? This is the end goal. So that service is available. If you go to libbylangley.com, you can get the information about that. But being happy is everything. And being happy is relative as well. Because if you are happy in your business, happy in your home, happy with your partner or happy on your own, then, if there's issues with your kids or your car breaks down, you can deal with everything. Okay. But if you're something major, like not being happy in your business, is out of whack, then everything else is much more hard to cope with. It's much harder to cope with. So there has to be some kind of happiness equality throughout your life, or it's very difficult to cope with life. And so the one that we can deal with today and throughout all these episodes of this podcast is the happiness in business. So rate yourself. Where are you on the happiness scale in your business? I'll tell you about my score. I'm going to rate my happiness in my business at, I think I'm going to say like 8.75 at the minute. And there have been times where I've been at a 2, utterly miserable with, I've never been at a 1. And I've never regretted having my own business and never wanted to not have my own business. But there have been times, and go back to episode 1 if you don't know the story of how we got to this podcast. There have been times in my business where I have been really desperately unhappy. And I've come through those because I've made the changes, because I've taken control and I've made the changes. So nothing is, if you're a 2 now, then that's fine. We acknowledge it and we take the steps to change that. But the reason I would say 8.75 at the minute is because I'm in the middle of finishing my book, which comes out in early 2023. I forgot how time worked then. And it's really difficult. It's really difficult writing a book. And I didn't realise how difficult it was because I've never written a book before. But thankfully, I have a book coach on board who's helping me to get to where I need to be and keeping me on track and keeping me motivated. That's the kind of stuff that us coaches do. And so I'm getting through it, and I know that the end is in sight. I've got another week or so in order to hit my deadline. And after that, it's going to be, kind of my job is done with that. So at the moment, I'm an 8.75. And I think normally I would say that I'm kind of a 9.5 at the moment, because I've been through the process of closing my group program, getting rid of that I didn't enjoy. And no, I didn't enjoy it. That's unfair to say that. It was unsatisfactory for me because I loved working with the people that I had within the program, but I couldn't do enough. It wasn't deep enough for me. So yeah. And to be at a 10, 10 is 10. You've got to have achieved your vision and your goals. And I'm on a business journey like you're on a business journey. So to be at 10, I would say possibly is unrealistic. But if you're there, wowzers, that's amazing. Take a moment to celebrate that. But the point is that it's a sliding scale, and you can be from 1 month to next, 1 year to the next. You can be at different stages. And I've certainly been at every single number on a scale of 1 to 10 in happiness. But reflect on where you are now and think about where that is. And that's not about money necessarily, because whilst there are frustrations of your income not being where you want it to be, and I'm guessing that that's perhaps part of why you're listening here, because you want to move up to that next level. You want to know how to push forward to the next income stream and to get more clients. Amazing. That's cool. We're going to talk about that in future episodes. But it's not necessarily about the money in terms of happiness, okay? We have to separate to a certain extent money and happiness, because if you're not happy with what you're doing, having 10 more clients or 100 more sales ain't going to make you any happier. It's going to make you richer, but it's not going to make you happier. And that's why reflecting on how happy you are and the happiness that you have and that your business brings to your life needs to be done as a separate kind of entity, looked at separately. Yeah. So are you living the life you dreamed of or aspire to, or a mini version of that? Are there changes that you've made in your business that are getting you towards that big vision that you've got? Can you see how it's all coming together, and how everything that you do, every step that you take every day, every piece of advice that is useful and you implement is getting you towards that? Because that's a happiness barometer as well. To be living the life that you always want, I don't think that you're there yet, because I don't think that's why you would be here, right? And if you are, welcome. And I hope you still got something out of this, but I don't think that you are, okay? And that's cool. That's so cool. And I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm holding space for you, and I'm here for you in your ear every week to help you get a bit further forward towards that goal. But you can certainly, even when you're not yet living the life that you dreamed of, or you really kind of aspire to, you can still be happy along the way, right? You can still enjoy the work that you're doing. You can still take a moment to celebrate the fact that you don't have to work past 3 p.m. anymore because you've got a simple business structure. You can just congratulate yourself for being in business and for sticking with it and for believing in yourself. All of those things are factors in the happiness scale. Okay? So it's not about achieving end goal, and it's not about money at all. I would say when I reflect back on my over a decade in business, that the happiest times have been with the people that I've worked with. Either when I had a team, there were some great times. We did some really good work, had a lot of fun, but also making a difference to the clients that I've got. So sometimes I've trained over 6,000 people in my decade in business. So I've worked with an awful lot of people, sometimes more hands-on than others. Sometimes it's been in big groups of people. Sometimes it's been very small. Sometimes it's been one-to-one. And small group down to one-to-one have been very, very satisfying experiences for me. And because I've been able to see the difference that I've made to people's lives. And to me, that's what my business has always been about. Yes, I set up my business because I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to be the queen of my own future, of my own destiny. But what gives me the satisfaction through my business is not having to work such long hours and not have to work on Fridays, all of that. There are my own boundaries. There are things I've put in place for my business. But the thing that gives me satisfaction and the thing that I really love about my business is making a difference to business owners like you. You're here now and you're listening and knowing that one or two things that I say will make you nod along and think, yeah, do you know what? That's food for thought. That's going to be helpful. I'm going to implement that, or I'm going to remember that, or I'm going to write that down, or I'm going to, whatever, connect with her on social media too, because this stuff's useful. And that in this context is so helpful. And then when I work with my clients is really seeing the difference in their eyes, people that I'm in front of via Zoom or actual face to face, people that I'm in front of and I'm connecting with and I'm making a difference. And that is the ultimate validation for me. And that really gives me the happiness. So it's twofold in business, really. Your happiness is the satisfaction from what you're doing, but also the satisfaction from how you're doing it. So those are the two things that feed into your happiness. And if those two things aren't there for you, then that's something that you need to look at. And that's something you need to think about. And that's something you need to pick apart and work out how you can make it simpler or more complicated. Never a fan of that, but maybe that's what you need. But making things more simpler, taking away a lot of the stress and hustle and complicated overwhelm, of everything is the kind of stuff that I help my clients with. And that's maybe the kind of thing that you need to get yourself up on the happiness scale. So the other thing that really matters in business, first one is happiness. Second thing is profit. And it's much more tangible and easy to measure than happiness because anyone can see whether you're making profit or not, but only you know if you're happy. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about profit. Have you ever done the maths in your business? And do you do it regularly? Do you keep an eye on it? So the maths is how much are you selling? What's the total value of what you sell per day, per week, per month, per year? And take away what the costs in the business are. It's a really simple equation, but that will give you how much profit you make. And you can work that out as a percentage. You can work it out as a number, but you can work it out as a percentage. And that's kind of a simple thing to do. And I've worked with various clients who I've had to say to them, your business is never going to make any money. And that's such an awful thing to say to someone, but it's my job as a business coach to always be honest and to always give the real talk, even when it is sometimes hard to hear. What's the point in me sugarcoating it? How could I be an effective business coach to someone whose business model quite simply is never going to make any money? I couldn't. So that's one thing that I'm there to fix. That's one thing that I help to fix. And what sometimes will be forgotten when calculating how much you bring in versus how much you spend is actually what you spend. And what you spend needs to be everything. And I mean everything. So that's any systems that you subscribe to, any like email software or website hosting or computer costs like that. So even things like if you have Dropbox to save your files, £10 a month, that needs to go down in your costs. So everything in terms of all the software that you spend out on, everything to do with costs in the business, such as networking meetings, petrol to get to things, hire of a venue, supply costs. For me, that's extremely low. It's kind of buying paper for the printer once a year. And things like that. But for you, depending on your kind of business, you might have a lot of material supplies. If you make candles, for example, you've got material supplies that you need to bring in. And then there's things like tax. You got to pay tax. And if you're a sole trader, then this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. But if you put aside 15 to 20%, you're probably going to have enough on one side to cover your tax. And like I say, that's something you need to speak to an accountant about, but just as a kind of rule of thumb. So if you put whatever you bring in, if you put 20% on one side, depends what country you're in, depends what kind of business you have, but this is a really broad brush rule of thumb, then that's a reasonable kind of amount to get you at least towards what tax you might have to pay. But that needs to come off, right? That needs to be included in the pot of costs because it's a cost. And then you might pay yourself a salary. If you're a limited company, or you're not in the UK, there will be different setups. So again, talk to an accountant out of that, but it will involve costs because tax, corporation tax, VAT, whatever, it's all a cost. So it all needs to be kind of factored in to your calculation. And then what else is there that you need to pay for? So buying a new computer, buying a new laptop, travel, any books that you buy for business, any coaching that you have. That's all costs. And so you might think, well, my business doesn't cost much. But actually, when you add everything in and your time, if you're not paid per hour, which isn't necessarily a calculation I would recommend, but if your time isn't paid for, like as a coach, the thing that I give is my time. Okay. So that's what people are paying for. They're paying for my time, for my expertise, for what's in my head. But if you're making something, I used the example earlier of making candles. So you're buying in your materials to create it. But the time it takes to create, right? That's still a cost. And it's still something that you should factor in. I'm going to talk more about pricing in future episodes. But just to say, everything gets factored in. What do you end up with? How much profit do you end up with? So once you've got your sales, all your income in, and all your costs taken out, what are you left with? And that might be 15%. It might be 90% that you're left with. And there's no right or wrong here because it depends on what the costs are. Like I say, a business where you are providing a service such as coaching, for example, is far more profitable than a business where you have supplies and resources that you need to buy in, okay, simply because there's more costs involved in the business. So they need to be scaled different. They can be scaled differently. So there isn't, you need to be making 60% in order to have a successful business. There's no kind of rule like that because it depends on your kind of business. But it's really important for you to know what the profit is. And when you've taken all your costs into account and your profit is a minus, there's work to be done. And the client that I'm telling you about and the client that I've worked with, without doing something with her pricing, she was never going to make a profit. And that's such a dangerous cycle to get into because you're going to be working, and then all working. And you're just never, ever, ever going to move forward. And sure, you'll be able to take, you'd be able to take your salary out of there and, there will be income coming in, but you're never going to move forward. You're never going to be able to build up a war chest. You're never going to be able to have the money, big money, to be able to invest in ongoing support or to upgrade your equipment or to take yourself off to a conference in the States or whatever it is. You're just never going to have the money to do that. And I want to make sure that you're starting to grow your business from an absolute place of honesty and really solid foundations, because that is what matters. This is something that I work with a lot with my clients, and it's an exercise that I tend to start with them because there's lots of detail that we can go into here. And if that is something that you need support with, then you can go to my website and book in to have a coaching call with me. There's always a 30-minute session free to see if we would want to work together or not. And you are absolutely welcome to try that out and to get support on these things, right? Whether it be short term in a 90-minute session or long term in a 12-month coaching program. It's entirely, it's up to you, but there is support available. And there will certainly, if you just Google, how do I calculate my profit? There will be an online calculator that you can find. Okay. Your starting point, but it's dead simple. How much do you bring in? What are all your costs? And minus those from what you bring in. And that gives you your profit margin. Okay. And those are the two things that matter in business. Firstly, you. Okay. This is going to be three things, but firstly, it's about you. It's about why you're in business, what you want, and how it's looking so far. Okay. Which then leads into the first of the two things that matter in business, happiness. Being happy is everything. Where are you on the happiness scale? Okay. And what can you change if you're not where you want to be? What is it? If you're brutally honest, what is it that doesn't make you happy in your business? That's the thing that needs to change. And where are you? Is what you're doing getting you towards the life that you've dreamed of, the life that you aspire to? Are you enjoying the journey towards that? And if so, if yes, then yay. And if not, what is it that doesn't sit right with you? And it might be the happiness thing. It might be I really absolutely hate providing that service for that client. Okay, that's easy because you can stop doing that. That's easy. But if it's, I don't know, something just doesn't sit right with me, then that's going to take you more time to sit and think about. But it is something you can sit and think about. And then the second thing, profit. Have you ever done the maths? If not, do the maths. And if you have done the maths, do them again. Do them again today. How much do you bring in? How much do you spend? What's the difference? Okay. And that's a number that you can always work on. The starting point is just today. So I hope that's been really helpful for you today. I hope that's given you lots to think about. It's given you some really practical actions. It's given you some intangibles, your happiness, and your tangibles of how much profit you're making. But they are the two things that really, really matter in business. So if you've enjoyed today, then please share this podcast to other people. Tag me on social media at Libby Langley and tell me what you found useful and interesting from today and what you're going to implement. I would love to hear that. You can also DM me on Instagram. I like to chat. So I'm at Libby Langley. Make sure that you subscribe and follow this podcast because that would be super. And then you won't miss any future episodes. And also leave a review because the more reviews that there are, the easier it is for people to discover the podcast in the first place. And the more we can share this message about the easier, simpler, happier, kinder, gentler way to do business, the better the world is going to be. Thank you ever so much for listening. It's been a pleasure to be in your ears again today, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to Life in Business. Please make sure you subscribe or follow so you don't miss any future episodes. If you enjoyed today's show, please leave a review as it helps others to find the podcast and spread the word that there is an easier way to do business. If you want to chat with me about today's episode or suggest a topic for the future, I'd love to hear from you. You can find me on Instagram at Libby Langley. See you next week.